Miami lands quarterback Emory Williams out of Milton, Florida. And speaking to people who watched him this past summer at the Elite 11 finals, there's a lot to like about him. 6'4", 190. He's a guy with confidence, comes with that positive vibe. He's just somebody that seems to have a good upside as a three-star recruit. Just someone to watch for moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is someone that Miami and this staff really liked when they evaluated him in person. He threw for them over the summer, kind of a private workout there on Green Tree or just around the facility. And, again, he didn't have a ton of offers at that time. There weren't a lot of people that knew about Emory Williams, but I think Miami trusted their evaluation there. And, just kind of speaking to people around the program even about Emory Williams, this is someone that they're kind of a believer in. And, this is year one really of the recruiting cycle in terms of them having a full class to kind of collect. And this is an arm that, they're kind of buying stock in. They're buying long-term stock in. And, I mean, you look at the stats, over 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns to 7 interceptions over the course of his junior and senior season. That's while completing over 62% of his passes over that time. I mean, this is a developmental arm. This is a guy they're going to have to bring in, obviously, depending on how the quarterback situation goes. I don't think Emory Williams is anyone that Miami is going to expect to throw out there anytime soon. But if we're looking forward, projecting 2-3 years down the line, I think Emory Williams could potentially be a guy that surprises some people.
One of these things about this sleeper guy, there were a lot of programs that would like to have had him, and Emory stayed true to his commitment, so he believes in this program, this coaching staff. I know the other recruits are excited about him as well. He just kind of, once again, has this positive vibe about him, and, slotting into the quarterback room at Miami, he doesn't have to step in right away and make a lot of plays. He just has to concentrate on development. And again, people that have seen him play really believe in his upside and believe there's more to come with Emory.
Yeah, and I think you dive a little bit deeper into his background, has some promising traits. I mean, he has a track and field background. He was a district qualifier in the 110-meter and the 300-meter hurdles as a sophomore. So this is someone that doesn't, I think now, especially when we're looking at football players, especially at the quarterback position, you're looking for multi-sport athletes. I think that's something that these scouts consider when they're evaluating these types of guys. And I think Emory does check some of those boxes in terms of having other stuff, verified athleticism, away from the football field.
One of the big things with a quarterback, in addition to all the physical tools, is just the approach to the game, how he handles a lot of situations. A quarterback is just a different position. Everybody knows that. That'll be something to watch for moving forward, of how he handles everything, getting into that college environment. Will his leadership traits show when he arrives on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot to be excited about with Emory Williams. You needed to kind of hit at quarterback, obviously maybe rolling the dice in terms of the big picture of maybe not getting that 5-star arm or, that, high level, highly touted, arm or whatever it is. But Emory Williams is someone, again, that I think people in Coral Gables are believers in. And this is one of those instances where they're trusting their eyes and they're rolling the dice here. So we'll definitely see how it pans out in the years to come.
A big-time get in the final week before signing day. It's 4-star running back Mark Fletcher, the 15th ranked running back according to the 24/7 Sports composite ranking, a top 10 running back by 24/7. Miami had to do a lot of work to get this guy. A lot of schools wanted him.
Yeah, this was an absolute grinder of a recruitment. Commits to Ohio State over the summer months. Seems solid up to with the Buckeyes. Kind of comes down to Miami for that Florida State game as an Ohio State commit. Watches Miami really get throttled on the field. I mean, we all know what happened that day. Kind of came off of that, feeling as though really any chance Miami had to make a move there was kind of dead, right? I mean, he was not impressed by what he saw on the field. Backs off of Ohio State a couple days later, really, and kind of surprised everyone. Florida became the program that everyone started to kind of peg him to and just kind of assume that he was going there. And really, I mean, I do think that there's a lot of legitimacy to that with Florida kind of being the team that he probably was considering most. But Mario Cristobal, this is exactly why you brought him down to South Florida. Gets Mark Fletcher on campus for an official visit the last weekend ahead of this early signing period. And he walked out of that official visit committed to the Miami Hurricanes. And it was just absolutely massive for them to be able to pluck his commitment away from Florida, an in-state rival who they are going to get, who they have on the schedule in 2024. So it's something that directly impacts that future game. And, of course, it just matters on the recruiting trail. So, I mean, big recruiting win for Miami here with Mark Fletcher keeping South Florida's top tailback in Coral Gables.
And there's multiple reasons why this is a big get, as you mentioned, going against an in-state rival. Also, the South Florida elite prospect, you like that as well. And in particular at running back, Miami needed help at running back. 6'1", 225 pounds. They like the bigger back, ideally in this, what they want to do building up front with the strength of the offensive line, a strong power game, running game, and Mark brings that. You know, a guy that rushed for over 100 yards in a state championship game against a tough Miami Central defense. Certainly there's a lot to like about him, his abilities, and the biggest thing is he's going to have a chance to showcase his abilities immediately when he arrives on campus.
Oh yeah, Mark Fletcher is a big, bruising 6'1", 225-pound back. Ran for nearly 2,000 yards as a senior, 23 touchdowns, 8.6 yards per carry. I mean, these are the types of backs that you bring in that kind of reinvent the room. This is how you change the way a football team looks. I mean, you know, just kind of adding some of those big bodies. I think Mark Fletcher is a much more twitched up version of what Miami was hoping to get in Thad Franklin. I think he's much more of a much more complete product, and the same idea, but I think the results are going to be much, much different with Fletcher. High character kid, high IQ kid. Definitely going to be a good representative of the program, and definitely a fantastic culture fit for what Mario Cristobal's trying to do with this team.
You touched on his power and his strength and those kind of numbers, but you said twitch, and that stands out to me with some of the film that I've seen on him, that he does have this ability to make cuts. And with a big guy, it is impressive with what he's able to do there. And I think Miami fans should be excited about this one and the coaching staff, because I definitely think it helps the running back room as it stands. I know they certainly would have liked to have had a bigger back last year. The way that the season went along with the running game, not really able to click consistently, especially after the beginning of the season. So Fletcher comes in, once again, a big-time get for the Hurricanes. A lot to like about him. His future certainly looks bright. Dillard speedster at running back Christopher Johnson signs with the Miami Hurricanes. A lot of speed, a lot of reasons to be excited about this dynamic playmaker.
Yeah, Chris, you nailed it. Elite speed, 10.45 in the 100-meter, 20.78 in the 200-meter as a junior. So that was good enough to take home gold in Florida's 3A state track meet. And I mean, Chris Johnson is just an absolute, really just absolutely flies. At one point was committed to Rutgers and then posted some of those speed times, and that had a bunch of big-time programs calling. You go through his timeline, you'll see that Georgia and Oklahoma and Michigan and Texas A&M, Alabama, all those schools came knocking for Christopher Johnson once they realized what that top-end speed looked like. Miami kind of, really grinding out the recruiting process, came out with a late win here in December, closer to the early signing day, obviously just landed his signature. And this is just a massive win for Miami. Again, when you're talking about adding that top end speed, you can't just find that just anywhere. I mean, this is as elite as it comes from a speed standpoint. So, this is a guy that, maybe not the purest running back at this stage of the process. I think he may be better served currently as more of a gadget guy, just kind of find a way to get him the ball in space. But man, when this guy has green grass in front of him, I don't think that there's anybody in the country that's going to catch him. So really exciting playmaker and, a high upside running back prospect.
You touch on his speed. There's a lot to be excited about that because, like you said, there's a lot of ways you can use them, and there's a lot of chance for development. And sometimes, especially with speed, it's hard to get better at that. You either have it or you don't. Maybe right. Incrementally you get better, but he's bringing a lot to the table. 5'11", 178 pounds is what he's listed at. 4-star recruit, top 20 running back in the country in that composite rankings. So again, Chris Johnson was a guy that we both had a chance to see at the Legends Camp over the summer. Get a chance to see him work, go through a lot of drills, and you see the quickness, in and out of breaks. And I really enjoyed watching Kevin Smith, running backs coach, kind of coach him up, kind of give him some extra pointers. But it was just fun seeing him go through all those different drills. The speed, even though it wasn't a game, you could see it right there just through those drills, just his quickness and his body movements. His agility was there as well, which is always big for a guy that has speed.
Yeah, home run hitter. I mean, that's really what the Chris Johnson was, Chris. Like you mentioned, we saw him at that Legends Camp. I mean, I think earlier that day, or maybe it was the week before, I watched him work out, one-on-one with Kevin Smith. Also watched him, kind of fielding some punts. I think this is someone that can get involved in the return game for Miami. Again, if he finds a crease, if he finds that gap, I mean, he just goes, man. You can't teach that. You said that at the beginning of your point, Chris. This is an innate trait. This is something you can't teach 10-4-5. You're born with it. You naturally have it. And again, I think one of the key things that Miami was looking to add to in terms of their roster was that top end speed. I felt like they were missing that a couple different points on their roster. And Chris Johnson is someone that just brings an absolute ton of it, and again can be a game changer in multiple ways. So I know that people in Coral Gables are super excited about him. They really chipped away. They really fought through that recruitment, and landing his signature here on Wednesday is a huge deal.
And the way he fits into the Miami roster, certainly a position of need. After a couple guys hit the transfer portal, he enters in 3 other guys on the roster at the current time. So that's certainly an important thing. And, he will find himself a role if he can get in there and understand the offense. But I definitely think he can make an immediate impact, like you mentioned, maybe a guy on special teams, whether it's in the return game or even some coverage stuff because of his speed. So definitely someone to watch for in his first year at Miami.